So everybody, welcome back to Keeping Ag Real. I am really, really excited because I have Kristin Reese here on the podcast. Kristin, say hi.
Hello.
So Kristin and I have had a couple opportunities this last summer to travel together, both to New York and then also to Europe. Kristin, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
I live in Ohio, so we live a little bit southeast of Columbus, which is our capital, in a town called Baltimore, Ohio, a little tiny town. You may not have heard of it. But on our farm, we raise sheep, we make grass and alfalfa hay, we raise turkeys, chickens, and I always say, and kids.
Yes, and kids. And your kids are like super, super busy and just awesome with the sheep and the turkeys and everything.
They are a lot of fun. Campbell is now 11, and Parker just turned 9. So they are really fun ages.
They're growing up so fast.
Time flies.
We were invited to an event that was put on by Bayer over in Germany and the Netherlands. It was kind of a 3-day type of an event. And you and I had talked, and we were like, if we're going all the way there, we might as well take a little extra time and just be tourists for a day or two. And we both had Switzerland on our bucket list, so that is where we headed, right?
So exciting. I mean, crazy. I'm still coming to terms with I've been there. It's a magical city. In Lucerne, where we kind of camped out, it was wonderful. I've heard people say it's the Disneyland of Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think that does it justice. I mean, Disneyland and Disney World is magical, but Lucerne just has this charm about it.
You were able to do a little bit more than I did. The Crohn's disease decided to act up, and so I was in bed for a day or so. And the things that you got to do were totally incredible. Can you talk about that?
I did. It was so, you were a super trooper for one. But I did, so we started our adventure, and I went out and I got a cup of espresso from this cute little retrofitted bus that had lights and music, and I asked for my cup of espresso to go, and they said, you must be an American. And I said, I am. So that was my first experience with it. We need to slow down. They don't do their espresso to go. They do it in a cute little teacup and saucer and serve it on this cute little table with a glass of water. And I just thought, you know what, we do need to slow down. And I sat there along Lake Lucerne, soaking it all in, and I sipped on my espresso, and it was wonderful. That's how I started my adventure in Switzerland, and it was magnificent. It was beautiful.
The one day, it was actually the day of rest, because they have one day a month.
Yes.
Remembering this right?
Yeah, every Sunday the shop closed, but when we were there, they had it was a special holiday. It was a religious holiday, and all of the churches were closed. All of the shops are closed, and then they gathered for worship at different locations around the country. And we met our little friend at the bus stop.
Right.
And she was dressed in her official Swiss garb, is what I will call it. It was her dress. I mean, it's everything you imagine to be in the Swiss Alps.
Yes.
This lady, who was probably in her 80s, was wearing, and it was so cute. And of course, I had to chat with her because I love older people. And she was just too cute not to talk to. She
reminded me of, like, as a little girl, I would read the book Heidi over and over over.
Exactly.
And her dress and her apparel, that's what I was reminded of.
Yes. And it was very interesting. If you remember when we were having conversation with her, we said, you live in the country? And she said, no, she lived just outside of town. And really, that was the country. I mean, I would say that is the country. She lives in the foothills of the mountain, and she wasn't a farmer, so that's why she said she didn't live in the country. But she lives in this beautiful countryside. It was just, just outside of the town.
And talk about I don't think it was called a roller coaster, it's like a huge slide.
I did the Alpine. Yes, I did the Alpine coaster, which is kind of like a toboggan ride, is really what it is. So one day, unfortunately, when you could not come out with me, I decided to take the boat ride across Lake Lucerne and take the cogwheel up, and I'm going to butcher this name, but Mount Peleus. And then I took a gondola ride, and then I walked to the top of the mountain. And then on my way down, I met this interesting couple from Australia who was on a 27-day tourist trip of Europe. And they said, you should really do that. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that was my name written all over it. So I did. I stopped, and it was so fun. It was great. The guy said, don't use the brake unless the sign tells you to. And so that's what I did. It was great advice. He said, if you use the brake, it's not as fun of a ride. But he said, be sure to use the brake when we tell you to, because otherwise you'll flip your coaster.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, okay. I like adventure, but I really don't want to end up in a hospital in Switzerland. So.
No. Yeah, we were
It was
already...
great. And then the most magnificent, yes, we were already dealing with potential with you, but the most fun part was that it was in the middle of a dairy farm,
right.
which was so cool because all of the cows wear bells. I mean, it was something that I always thought was just in, the books and the movies, but they really do. They're wearing bells in the mountainside, and it's just a wonderful little song that they play when you're just kind of hiking around. It's magical.
And didn't the toboggan ride or whatever it's called, you actually went over some pasture land where there were cows underneath you, right?
I went right through. Yeah, I went right through it. Like, they're there. They graze on either side. So
cool.
You're just kind of in the pasture, and there'd be a cow right there, right beside you. So that was a really neat experience for me.
And then we learned quite a bit about dairy in Switzerland.
So the dairy farms are small in Switzerland. They are, yes, much smaller than in America. So I think the average herd size is less than 25 head per farm in Switzerland. And there are lots of dairy cows, but they're all very small operations. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of interesting to learn. And their facilities, their barns are just beautiful. I mean, I guess you get a really good appreciation for how new America is, right, and how old things are in Europe. And it's just really, really neat to see.
And it was interesting as we took the train, we actually flew into Zurich, and we took the train from Zurich to Lucerne. And it was interesting to see that there were actual farms, like, right in the middle of these little towns. It was like it was all one thing. And you would see the cattle, on a pasture with houses around it, kind of like...
little mini villages, I think. I mean, It was just kind of, you'd be riding on a train, and there would be a farm. And the interesting thing that I noticed was that everything is very on a small scale. So it's all small, and they'd have a little bit of corn, maybe a little bit of wheat, or a little bit of hay, and it would be kind of all there on a very small scale.
I felt...
which is much different than we have in America. And even from Germany, as we kind of traveled through Switzerland into Germany, we saw a huge difference.
Definitely. Anything else about Switzerland? Oh, so the touring of the stone streets. There was a day that I was able to get out, and we did quite a bit of hiking. And one of the things that we were trying to find were the Swiss Army knives, which we did find.
Yes, which we accomplished.
Yes.
Yes, I had to check my baggage because of my knives.
That's right.
I thought, the rule is with the kids, if you've been to the city before, you don't get a treasure. But if you haven't been to the city, then you get a treasure. And so obviously I've not been to Switzerland. So I thought, what better gift to give them than Swiss Army knives? I picked up, but I had no idea there was such a plethora of kinds and varieties. And so we had to sort through there what kind of a Swiss Army knife I was going to end up with. The kids loved them. They were super thrilled. Good. And then I think you got Swiss Army knife chocolate.
I did, yes.
So I told the kids, I'm like, I got you a Swiss Army knife, but it's chocolate. And they're like, yay! They said a real one would have been even more exciting. And I said, well, good thing, because I got you one of those too. So they were very excited that they got real Swiss Army knives.
So, confession. I went on another trip.
Did you eat yours before you got home?
No. I went on another trip a week ago, and I have been on the road more or less off and on since July, which you kind of have as well. And so I just kind of washed my clothes and put them back into the suitcase. Well, I had covered up the little
I know where this is going.
With the chocolate. And so I was like, oh, crap. Well, it was nighttime, and I didn't want to just leave it and not explain it to them. So I have yet to give them their chocolate pocket knives. Maybe I'll do that tonight.
Well, they're going to love them.
Yeah.
Although I will tell you, it's a little surprise. It's not just milk chocolate inside.
Oh,
it's
really?
got that little bit of nougat inside of it.
Oh,
the kids were not huge fans of them.
Oh.
It's got a honey nougat. It's different. It's good.
Right.
It's just not like the pure Swiss milk chocolate that I'd given them previous.
Right.
And so, be a little prepared because It's got this special Swiss nougat, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
But the children were not as big of fans.
Well, so maybe they won't like it, and then I'll get to eat it.
Then you get to eat the Swiss Army knives.
Okay, so let's talk.
Which the chocolate was magnificent, and so was the wine. I mean, it was fun to eat and drink food, that is so much more prevalent there than here. I mean,
Right.
wine is so cheap there.
Right.
Chocolate is really pretty affordable there as well. So it's just interesting with the price differences. Really, food is very affordable.
Yes.
In Europe, except for Switzerland, in Lucerne, because that city, or that little town, I should say, is very expensive.
Yes, that fondue, we shared a fondue, and I think it was like 30 or 40 francs.
So the Alpine cheese.
It was quite a bit, and our exchange rate was not very good.
Not good.
So it was even more expensive
but it's
for
all
us.
about the experience. And we crashed a wedding and we ate fondue.
That's
not many
right.
people can say they did that on the Lucerne River.
Yes.
Or the lake, I guess it was there.
Yes, that's true. And for a while I thought we crashed 2 weddings.
Right, because we thought there were 2 brides.
Right, but it was just one. It was interesting, and I do keep wondering, is that normal to have a wedding at a venue like that, on a restaurant?
I think so. I mean, I think it was like an open air restaurant. I mean, it's a beautiful venue, but I think that's very common for them there from what I was gathering. So, I mean, what a great place. And then you're just surrounded by people, and I don't think they worry about it there.
No.
If we'd have everything planned to a T here in America, it was just kind of, it is what it is. And
right.
What a beautiful surrounding.
Right. Yeah. It was really interesting. And then the other place that comes to mind in Lucerne that I was able to see was the market. And we had just arrived, I don't know, like 20 minutes before they were going to close. And the market isn't like a grocery store that we know of here in the States where you walk in. It was actually, kind of an open building, and a lot of the produce was sitting outside in racks, and they brought it all inside. And then the eggs, and the new eggs, that I guess the new thing there is to have dyed eggs, kind of like what we do at
Very
Easter
interesting,
time.
like Easter, like you would dye your Easter egg. Yes, they just dye their normal, chicken eggs.
You know what? I wonder if that had anything to do with the holiday.
I wonder. I don't know.
I don't know.
Point.
It was interesting. Sure. And if listeners aren't familiar with European handling of eggs actually are not refrigerated there. They sit on the shelves and never do go into refrigeration.
We're one of the only countries that actually does refrigerate eggs. And I think the important thing to mention there is that they would never have been refrigerated and then room temperature. They would always remain at room temperature. True. And we actually have egg customers that like their egg to be not washed because you don't lose that natural coating over the egg. And then they just keep them on their countertop. And that's what they do. So they're kind of European. Yeah.
And the coating actually allows the egg to last longer because the coating is closing up the air sacs. It's hard to tell, but there's kind of like microscopic air sacs all around an eggshell, which then with that coating are closed up.
Keeps it fresh.
It keeps it fresh, right?
It's the miracle of the hen, because the hen does that herself. I mean, it's just really a pretty cool thing. Poultry is really fun.
It is. It is. So from Switzerland, we had an interesting, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this without laughing. We had an interesting journey to Dusseldorf, Germany, from Lucerne.
We did. I mean, what sounds wrong with not speaking the language, taking a train across the country we know nothing about, and, being on a tight timeline? I mean, nothing could go wrong, right?
And lugging, not only, I was so stupid, I should have listened to Brooke.
I am a light traveler. I'm like a backpack and one little carry-on. That is all I need. And then Jenny comes along with her, wardrobe on wheels.
So I had a big suitcase that I had checked because I remember from my last trip in Europe, which we were both on 2 years ago, I actually brought a bunch of stuff back for my kids, and some of it I couldn't take in my carry-on, and I had to check. And someone had mentioned that to me, but on that trip, we just stayed in Dusseldorf. We weren't like traveling across the continent. But so I was traveling with this pretty big suitcase and then a carry-on suitcase and my backpack, and it was a lot.
Not feeling 110%.
No. Yeah, like maybe 20%-ish.
Yeah. So we did great. We did wonderful. We had to change trains twice, which when we bought our ticket, we were like, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. And then the train was lagging. Somehow the trains were just running a little bit behind and they kept getting more behind. And I will never forget that moment when we trained in first class. We should share with them. We were super fancy.
Oh, yeah.
But first class because it was what? It was cheaper. It was a Sunday special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were asking other people and they were like, oh no, we're commoners.
Yeah. So then we're like, oh man, we're commoners too. You don't really know us.
Right.
But that was fun too, to ride, in the nicer train cars. But when we got off that one train and we're moving from one, section to the next, and then we're lugging our luggage, and I went to get on this train and the door closed, and I'm like, no, I'm banging on the door. Let us in. This cannot be happening. We cannot miss this leg of our train.
I thought we were in a movie.
Like this sinking feeling. Oh, I mean, I really got there and that door closed. I'm like, this can't even be happening. This is like a movie. This doesn't happen in real life, that they close your train car right in front of your nose. So in actuality, what happened was they were closing that car to clean it. And so we just had to go to a different car. And it was no big deal. We had a minor freak out moment because we knew we were going to miss our other trains, not get to Dusseldorf on time. Fortunately, it was just a car, and we made our train.
And then, of course, Kristin travels with these cute little bottles of bourbon whiskey.
Yeah, so the story behind those is that my cousin lives in Kentucky, and, all bourbon, real bourbon's made in Kentucky. So it's kind of like her little card when she comes to visit. She'll bring a little bottle of bourbon with her. And so I have this little bottle of bourbon in my purse because I thought, you know what? I might want a little bourbon on the flight over. I'll sleep great. This will be wonderful. And I never ended up drinking it. So I said, you know what, Jenny, I've got this bottle of bourbon in my purse. I'm totally drinking it once we got on there and situated and made our train. And it was delicious.
So we get to Germany, and the purpose there is to attend the Future of Farming dialogue put on by Bayer. And it was really the first event after Bayer and Monsanto had merged and come together. And it was really exciting to see the excitement, I think, in the leadership team and how they've all come together. But also we heard more about the idea of collaboration, which is something that Bayer has been working on through the last several months, but we really got to see it during the event.
It was fascinating. I think anytime, so you have these two great corporations, and they've both got leadership teams, and now they have to merge these two together. And I think you're right. I think it was all about collaboration. I think you saw people from both companies coming together, working together, and really they've embraced the same principles and practices, and now they're able to come together and be one. And it really is amazing to see how that works. And one thing that I think is really neat is that, they have these high executive titles and levels and positions that are doing great things in these companies, and they're such normal people.
Yeah.
I think that's what I love most, is that you don't, they're no different than us. They really visit with you and want to hear what you have to say and want to chat and have conversation, and just like anybody else.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Liam Condon recognized us from the last trip in Europe.
Previous years, yes.
Just incredible. And, he just stood in the doorway and listened, and we chit-chatted, and he's very in tune with what is going on in the food and agriculture space from their viewpoint, but he's also very much into wanting to know. He wanted to know from my viewpoint and what's going on, like boots on the ground type of perspective, which is really something I've never experienced before. They've all of the leadership team, the whole time that we have worked with Bayer, have always been so down to earth and
just fun to learn from and fun to listen to. And I think that this trip was so jam-packed with information and tons of just resources. And they really do look for our opinions or what we're doing. What are the things we're dealing with? Like, how could we, become better at what we're doing for the farmers? And I think that is encouraging. And I wish that all farmers and all people involved in agriculture were the same way. I mean, it's just a very welcoming way to start a week.
It is. And then we also got to hear about non-for-profit. One of those is...
that was maybe my favorite part.
Yeah, 1 Acre Fund. Do you want to talk about 1 Acre?
So, yeah, 1 Acre. I found this one to be just marvelous. I mean, I think what these people are doing, so basically they're going to another country, and they have specific countries that they work with, and they are providing for a fee seed and packages. So seed, it could be different kinds of treatments, it could be fertilizers to these farmers. And they have enough for 1 acre. So grow 1 acre, produce a harvest, and they're providing them with all the resources and tools. They give them a cell phone. They can call. They kind of have a resource. And it is changing the lives of not only the farmers, but their communities, providing jobs, providing clean water, all these things that we take for granted. And I think that's what hit me so hard, is that we in America, we are so greedy. And even though we think we're not, we are.
We are.
And we take for granted what we have. And what we're worried about here in America, we're worried about,
GMOs. What kind
of high-end food we're going to feed to our kids, when there are people who are just worried about having fuel to feed their kids. They need protein. They need water. And we're worried about all these foofy things, and they're just worried about the basics of life. And when they brought in the panelists to talk, the different small farm panelists from across the world, and the woman from Africa, I mean, that really hit me hard. I mean, she was just amazing. And she was the type of person, she wouldn't say she's poor. Would we think she's poor? She is probably poor. But she wasn't poor. There was nothing about her that anyone felt sorry. She had lost her husband. She had lost her brother-in-law. She had so much misfortune in her life. And she was so grateful.
So grateful, and yet so enthusiastic about the future.
And excited. She was talking about all the things she could do in the future to make it even better for her community. It wasn't just her family or her friends. It was her whole town that she was really, looking to take to the next level. And she, I think she was a landowner. It was just interesting to talk to her. She owned land, and she's like, if I could just get a little more land, I could do so much more with it. And because of GMOs and biotechnology, she can do so much more on the land that she has.
Right.
And I think that's the really kind of interesting thing about the whole trip, because when we're in Germany, they are not allowed to grow GMOs.
Right.
And man, can you imagine what they could do?
Yeah.
And how much more they could produce and be efficient on the land that they have? It'd be crazy.
I think that really hit home and we'll talk about this here pretty quick, but the Forward Farm in the Netherlands, that's really, I think, when I completely understood what they're up against there. And it's not easy.
It's very complex, and and I don't think that it will change in the near future. But we have so much anti here in America, and I really just feel if everybody would hop on board, and it doesn't matter if you support one or the other, but if you would just kind of collaborate with one another and support that, I do it this way, you do it that way, both ways supply a market. It's okay. And I think we need to see more of that in America.
Absolutely.
And, these farmers in Germany would love to have access to what we have, and they can't.
Absolutely love. And that was one of the questions when I had gone out on Twitter and I asked, what is it that you want to know? And the big question was, do they really want genetically modified plants and seeds? The resounding answer is absolutely yes. Yes, yes, yes.
For sure. And so instead of complain about it, because they can't change it right now, they work on it. They're trying to work towards that direction, but they find other ways to incorporate technology into their practices, which is what the Forward Farm is all about.
Right.
And these are really pretty amazing people doing amazing things. And so they know they don't have access to it, but what can we do? And they really have a toolbox that is so much more than just, wanting GMOs. They have all these other tools that they can use to better what they're doing and farm smarter, like we do here in America. So there's a lot of differences, but there's an awful lot of commonalities as well.
Yes. Why don't we just go ahead and talk about the Forward Farm, and then we'll talk about, and I'm going to mispronounce it, Wageningen. How do you say the university name?
Oh, I'm not even going to try, because it's like Wageningen, something like that. I can't even pronounce it. I'm not probably smart enough to attend that university since I can't pronounce it.
And here I may actually attend. I need to learn it. I
Yes.
think.
Yes, you said.
So we'll talk about the university after we talk about the Forward Farm. A Bayer Forward Farm is a farm that is open to the general public at appointed times, and they have different activities and workshops and different ways to help the general public understand what is actually happening in farming. And we visited the first Forward Farm in Germany 2 years ago. And then there was one that was started here in the U.S. on the East Coast that is easily accessible by congressmen and women, and now this Forward Farm, which is in the Netherlands. And my big takeaways, kind of going along the line of they want GMOs, and right now there's a lot of discussion about outlawing glyphosate. Currently, it is legal to use by farmers. It cannot be used by professional landscapers. And the crazy thing is, in place of the glyphosate, they are using blowtorches to kill weed. And the number of building fires and house fires have increased because these professional landscapers are having to use blowtorches to rid the area of weeds.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
We've come to this.
Yeah.
If only people would, maybe hear the other side of the story, which is what I think that this whole trip was about, was exploring. Right. Because there were a lot of agricultural communicators on this trip, but there were also some non-farm type of communicators. And it was really interesting to see the light bulb go off in their heads that really, I never knew this. This was a total light bulb moment on so many different levels for people. And I think the one for me, which Ruben, who was on one of the communicators with us, a food journalist, I will call him, from originally Australia, now lives in LA and is a food critic and travels the world, seeing restaurants,
very well-known
food
critic.
And yeah, how cool is that? Got to meet him, and he had no idea that they could actually use pesticides and chemicals in organic food production.
Right.
Completely thought that was a total free chemical food, and there's nothing wrong with the chemicals that they use, or the pesticides, or the herbicides, whatever it may be. Absolutely nothing wrong with it, but just his perception was that it was zero, none. And he's like, really? I wonder if people know this.
And I have to disagree with there's nothing wrong with the pesticides, because the pesticides that can be used in organic, yes, they're natural. And I think that word natural has translated to it means it's okay. And those pesticides are so much more potent than the synthetic pesticides that have been developed. And the reason those pesticides, like glyphosate, were developed to reduce not only the toxicity, but the amount of pesticide that has to be used, which doesn't just affect what could be going into the food supply, but it also affects
our water quality.
The water quality and the amount of water that you have access to as well. But yeah, that was really eye-opening for me. Hear this food critic, someone who is very well-traveled, very experienced, really didn't understand any of that.
Yeah,
right.
He didn't. He didn't know. And he's like, well, why aren't we sharing this more? Why aren't we telling people? And we're like, we are. Wonderful. This through people like you. I mean, this is the way that people gain more knowledge about these things.
Exactly.
And I think it's always fascinating when you can have a conversation with people from the more outside or the more finished product than the people growing the food, just kind of their thoughts and perspectives on what we're doing in agriculture. And I think once they can understand or wrap their mind around, well, one of the greatest reasons that GMOs, one of the greatest reasons that we use them is because we can preserve water quality. We can, avoid more emissions. We can do all these great things for the environment. And I think it's the toughest for them because they can't actually see it. We can't say yet, but we're close or there in some cases that this is why we do it, because we are producing, an apple that doesn't brown. Until they can see it, feel it, touch it, I think they have a really hard time grasping it.
And connecting the dots.
Right.
I would say that the best thing that Bayer could have done and did do with this event is invite Ruben and then also another communicator who is not in agriculture. He He is a self-proclaimed stand-up mathematician. Hilarious. Also from Australia. He has a television program called Sci TV, Outrageous Acts of Science. And it was so cool to spend the day with him, and he would like pull me aside and be like, why aren't people doing this? Why aren't farmers talking about this? I was like, we are, and we're not making progress. You tell us what you think we should be doing. And it was just incredible to have access to somebody like that and to be able to talk with them and see the light bulbs go off in their minds.
It is, and he's such a very smart person. And to have him, you know, sometimes I think super smart and scientific mathematicians and science research type are so smart sometimes. They overanalyze things, and I think he really breaks it down in this great, easy way.
Yes.
For people to understand. And you know, he was learning as he was going too. And it was just kind of a fun week to have him there because I learned from him and just ways that we can better chat, ways that we can better listen to what people are saying and how we can be more effective communicators. And he was hilarious. Yes. And he has great hair. I did get to touch his hair. You have to look him up when you do. You'll understand. I think his hair is like his calling card. I mean, it's his, you know, it's part of him.
And his handle on Twitter is Math Maniac. He's definitely somebody you should try to connect with. He's on Twitter, but not Instagram. And you can connect with Ruben on Instagram. And his handle is REUBENMOURAD. And he was a hoot. We're going to talk about the Dutch cooking class that we took.
Oh, Ruben.
At the end of the day.
He was definitely, I would say, you know, the most beautiful person on our trip.
Yes. Yes, he was, yes.
And he has that great Aussie accent.
He did. But just being able to
making Ruben's day by, you know, local farm mom talking about how beautiful Ruben is. I'm sure he could really care less, my opinion. But he is a very handsome man with a very charming voice.
He is. And I guess I can say this. And I know this, we all know this because of his Instagram account, but he has some really nice abs.
Well, yes, he does, and he shows them to everybody. So you'll have to check out Ruben's abs. He definitely had the only six-pack on the trip.
Yeah. Well, I know Jeff Donald's working on his, but...
Jeff Donald is a close right behind Ruben.
Yeah.
And he likes food, too. He's a good food critic.
Yes. So... that was the forward farming. One more thing, actually, before we move on from the forward farm, is one of the gentlemen did the best presentation I have ever heard about glyphosate and how it's a carcinogen compared to wine. And I found what they had found is that if they were to try to use wine as a pesticide, it would not pass through the regulations.
Crazy? Yes.
And after our trip, I kind of started looking into that. And what area of the world consumes the most wine?
I don't know. What is it? Is it France?
Europe.
Europe in general.
They consume the most wine across the world. Yet farmers are in danger of having a tool like glyphosate taken away from them. It's really kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yeah.
The next part of the trip is attending the university that is in the Netherlands, which was just an outstanding place.
Beautiful campus.
Yes, beautiful. And you can get a degree in consumer perception.
And you can get a degree that is extremely affordable.
Yes. Yes.
Compared to the United States. I'm like, I think I'm going to have my kids go there.
Yes. Yeah.
Education is so much more affordable in Europe. So much more affordable.
You can do it online, too.
Yes.
What, I guess, were your 3 takeaways from that experience?
So I think my first takeaway was that the university really values research, and I think that's so important. And lots of our land-grant universities, they have students doing research. They have huge student involvement, and they really value their student input, their ideas for research and development. And they have a whole building dedicated to research where if you have an idea or you have a thought that you maybe want to test out, they have a whole facility where you can go and you can do scientific experiments and really try to develop whatever it is your idea may be. And the campus is beautiful. I mean, it's just this gorgeous location. And again, it seemed so calm.
Right.
and so laid back compared to the hustle and bustle of America.
Very much so.
My other takeaway was that they eat a lot less meat than we do in America. And I think I didn't really realize this until I went to the university and I kind of sat through some different things and listened to presentations that they really would like people to eat less meat.
Do you think that's a Netherlands thing?
I do. I think it's probably across the board. And I'm a meat producer.
Because Germany, I thought Germany 2 years ago, I mean, I was like, give me something more than just bread and meat, because every meal was bread and meat. I was like, I need an apple or an orange or a banana, something, please.
Which is so weird because their food is so fresh, and you walk through and they've got these beautiful fruits and vegetables and, of course, cheeses and breads and things like that. But this is a good segue into something that you kind of loved throughout the trip, and you were on a mission yourself to talk about the bicycles.
Yes.
And all the bread and the goodies that we ate. So I'm like, Jenny, there's a great shot.
Perfect.
You and your bicycle obsession from Switzerland through Germany and into Amsterdam.
In the U.S., I think that we like to take the lazy route and blame obesity and health problems on strictly diet. And the white elephant in the room is lack of exercise. And I'm not saying that exercise is going to solve all of our problem, but as someone from the outside going to Europe twice now, the thing that has most impacted me is the number of people are using bicycles for transportation. They even have bicycle parking lots just for bicycles that go underground.
There's bikes everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's bicycles everywhere. And in Germany specifically, there's so much bread being consumed, there's so much meat being consumed, but yet you don't have the obesity problem that we see here.
They're a very active culture. I mean, I think you would see, so on that Sunday we talked about earlier that, it was kind of the day of rest. Everybody was out doing active things with their families.
Yes.
They weren't, at home inside. Everybody was in all the parks, even on the train ride. You could see just people in parks and on bicycle paths and just walking, running, moving all the time. And I think that that's something we really need to focus more here in America, because we get to be lazy. I mean, I'm going to say it. I feel like sometimes we are lazy, and we choose to sit down and do nothing rather than enjoy, our family outdoors and going for a bike instead of, going to the movie theater. A little bit tiny sad, but, whatever they're doing is working because they have a very thin population over there. I mean, everybody's very fit.
Yes.
And active, and, we can learn some things. And
Definitely.
They could learn some things from us.
Which really is the reason that we both went on this trip. It's the reason that we both went to Blog Her in New York. We want to find out what other people are doing and learn from other people just as much as we want them to learn from us. But I think that in the agriculture industry, we've put so much emphasis on trying to get people to learn from us that we have forgotten to listen and learn from others. And I think maybe that's changing, but I hope that from our experiences and sharing those experiences, we help inspire more people to do that.
Right. I think you nailed it on the head when you said the listening. We need to be better listeners. I mean, I think no matter what level of farming or communicating that you're on, we always need to be listening. And sometimes we listen, but we don't always hear exactly what's being said. And I think we can learn a lot from that. And that's why it's so fun to go and meet these people that are from across the world and the cool things that they're doing. And
meet the Heidis in Switzerland.
I know, yes. And just to be on a level with some of these, people from the Bayer Corporation, like I said before, you think they're up here at this certain executive level when really they wouldn't be where they are if they weren't listening to, the people out in the farms and, really the grassroots people. And I really feel like that's kind of something that Bayer finds to be very important.
It is very exciting.
And then we ended our trip with one of my favorite things. I mean, I love to eat, but I also love to cook.
You do.
You got to do all of those things.
And I am not the best cook. I used to cook, and I should really talk about that because I don't want people to think that I've never cooked and I've never been a good cook. I used to love to cook and would do all kinds of things. Well, so does my husband. And as our kids got older, I think I had my confidence completely stomped out by, oh, I don't like that, or I don't want that, or what are we eating? Oh, yeah, things like that. And it became very frustrating for me to cook for my family because of the rejection. As I guess, withdrew from my cooking, then my husband Jeff stepped up, and he is a fabulous cook, I have to say. But, I mean, he can cook, he can bake, he can grill. Yeah, it's awesome. Very, very appreciative, and I know I take him for granted a lot. I would like to see it be more of a partnership where we're both cooking. And so that's, in New York, we had the cooking competition, and, I really admire you and love watching you around food, and especially at the Dutch cooking class. I was so proud because I was able to brown that lamb.
Oh, you did great. You did magnificent. All I did was, put the salt and the pepper on the meat, and we worked together to, put the rosemary and the sage and, all those herbs on the lamb. And really that's what the whole class is about. It was working together.
Right.
We did it. We were tasked with the protein, which was lamb, which I was very excited that we got to do that. And then we all got to eat together. And what a way to end the week after getting to know all these people from all over the world. And then we all come together. We were drinking a little bit of wine and just having so much fun. And our Argentina and Brazil friends just make cooking so much more fun because they're so loud and boisterous and have fun in the kitchen.
It was
a great team building exercise for certain.
And I think we had 7 countries represented in this kitchen.
Yes.
It really just was an incredible experience to be with all of these people from all over the world, communicating, even if everyone didn't speak fluent English. Like at our table, I was being taught Spanish from one end of the table and then refreshing my German at the other end of the table. So we were speaking German, Spanish, and English through our entire meal. It was hilarious.
One of the most exciting things for me is just the experiences that I'm able to have and the people that I meet.
Yes.
And while you may know no one when you enter into an event like this, you leave with not only new friends and connections, but a refreshed outlook on life, on our future, and on agriculture. I think you cannot leave there without your heart being touched. And this is not like a touchy-feely conference, but just knowing what we have and others don't, and the good that is being done by not only other people, but Bayer as a corporation, reaching out to small farmers, helping them, truly caring about feeding hungry people across the world. I mean, it really was a gratifying experience just to know all the good in such a negative society that's happening. And that we're with other agricultural communicators that feel the same way we do.
And it was great. I mean, we were with Pam Smith from DTN. We were with Cindy Zimmerman from Zimcom. Lots of people that we knew from the States were there with us. But then we got to meet people like Farmer Tom from the UK, who is just an amazing person. Ricardo from Argentina. There were so many individuals there, and we all got to share that experience. And I can't say thank you enough to Bayer for inviting us and allowing us to learn.
It was a wonderful learning experience. It was truly kind of I think of these things as once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to participate on such a global scale and just I always feel grateful to be included. Sometimes, you have to pinch yourself and think, does my voice really matter?
Right.
And while it's so small, it really does make a difference. It's a great way to learn and become a better communicator in the world of agriculture.
And everybody's voice matters, no matter who you are.
Absolutely. There is room for everybody's voice.
Is.
Absolutely.
And I know that Bayer is also open to working with other farmers, non-farmers, communicators as well.
Great.
Let's wrap this up by sharing how people can get in contact with you.
I am across the board on social media and Local Farm Mom on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Well, it was great to share another extraordinary trip with you. And
it was. It's always good to travel with you, Jenny.
And thank you for coming on the show. And
thanks for having me. This is my very first podcast.
Yay!
So I'm very excited that I've done a podcast now.
Thank you so, so much.